Hey everyone, and welcome to the Mic'd Avengers podcast, where we focus on martial arts and action cinema, but definitely delve into much more. My name is Jason from Martial Arts Theater 3000. I've been a lifelong fan of martial arts movies from Bruce Lee to the Venom Mob, Bruceploitation, and everything in between.
My name's Dragon, aka the Fanatical Dragon on YouTube. I also write the Blu-ray reviews for Eastern Heroes magazine right here in the UK. I'm about 4 decades into this love affair with East Asian cinema, specifically action cinema. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan and the Shaw brothers got me into Hong Kong films, but unlike my buddy Jason, I've seen a whole bunch of Japanese, Indonesian and South Korean action flicks too. So over the coming episodes, every so often, we're going to force feed him something he has not seen.
And I'm Shaun, also known as Food for Thought. It all started for me at the tender age of 14, where I discovered Jackie Chan's Drunken Master. From there, I kind of delved into old school Kung Fu, and that has been my passion for 30 plus years now. I also started delving into all realms of Asian cinema, and I'm very happy to say that these days I have a pretty strong passion for kind of dark Korean thrillers. If you like what you hear and you're enjoying the podcast, please give us a like, share and subscribe. And please enjoy this episode of the Mic'd Avengers. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mic'd Avengers podcast. I am here, I am Shaun, aka Food for Thought, and I'm here with my co-host Jason, aka Martial Arts Theater 3000. Hey Jason. How's
it going?
And I'm, of course, here with the Fanatical Dragon himself. How are you?
Greetings, I'm well.
Good. We're talking about... I don't want to reveal too much up front in regards to opinions and how we feel about this movie, but we are discussing and this is up for debate, either the 1982 or 1983 film, Duel to the Death. The reason I say that, 82, it came out in South Korea. 83, it came out in Hong Kong, or at least that's what I read. And we're going to be discussing that and getting into the nitty-gritty of all things Duel to Death. And before we go any further, we're going to do our usual and throw it to Dragon to give us a quick synopsis, or multiple synopses in this case.
Synopsi, indeed.
Synopsi, yes.
Super economical this time around. IMDb is literally just one sentence. The best swordmaster from China versus the best swordmaster from Japan. Who will win? That's it.
Yeah,
that's all they've got, which I feel is missing out a big chunk of the movie. And Google doesn't do much better. They say, as the contest between Chinese and Japanese martial artists nears, two warriors learn of a plan to rig the duel by abducting the best fighters and try to set things right, which is better.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But still no mention in either of an enormous amount of ninjas in this movie.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how much it kind of relies on... I know it's got the whole Japanese element, but this film relies heavily on ninjas to be as cool as it is.
This is a ninja-tastic movie. This might be the most ninja-tastic movie to come out of Hong Kong.
Oh,
in
man.
fact,
in a year loaded with them.
I think it's safe to say that the original title for this film was indeed Ninja, or Ninjas. I can't remember what it was, but it was originally just Ninja, as told by the writer of the script. Originally it was Ninja, and then I believe it was changed to Duel to Death basically last minute, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so that's very interesting.
It was Manfred Wong.
Yes.
And they spent a year working on the screenplay for this, which is nuts. And then almost as long shooting. I think it was a 6-month shoot, which is almost unheard of for Hong Kong movies. Even back then, I think like Shaw Brothers on average were about a month for most stuff. If it was super ambitious, maybe they'd extend to like 6, possibly 7 weeks. But 3 months would be exceptional. 6 months is astounding. The fact they kind of worked on this for half a year, and it shows. There's a lot of incredible stuff in this movie.
It's interesting that since, you have the American ninja craze with Enter the Ninja and all that building up, and then, of course, Ninja in the Dragon's Den and 5 Element Ninjas at Shaw Brothers, you'd think they would have just kept that title, but it's cool they went the other way. They bucked it a little bit because, watching this, I'll save opinions and stuff, but, watching this, I was surprised that both titles work, and I really like Duel to the Death, but it's admirable they didn't just jump on the bandwagon. It would have worked to say.
I think you're right there. I think the interesting thing is, though, this film being called Ninja, it kind of does ignore a lot of what the film is, which is the duel, building up to the duel.
Right.
And it does kind of, don't get me wrong, there's ninjas. There's a fuckload of ninjas in this film. But there's a strong kind of Bushido samurai elements. And it leans very hard on the duel aspect. So I don't know if it was just called Ninja, that may be a bit cheap.
Selling it short,
I think.
Yeah.
They wouldn't
a
really
little
have
bit.
worked. Yeah, the ninjas were like a nice running in the background like program.
Exactly.
And they always
Yes.
it came in nice, but I really like the mix. It hits so many bases of the style of movies too.
Yep.
I mean, wow. Because normally, like if you watch a Dragon Lee, you're like, oh, that's a Korean film, and the vibe of it, and then of course Japanese gives a different vibe, and Shaw Brothers. But man, there's such a melting pot of styles and cultures here. Like it's really, and it's nicely split. And we'll go into like all of our takes and everything. It made me want to ask this initial question. Have you seen Dragon? Maybe this is because of like the feudal Japan and what went on and stuff, but have you seen Japanese movies that show their style or their side of like the Chinese versus Japanese feud, or they don't touch on that too much, like in their topics?
No, because essentially in reality, they were always the invader in that situation. Like Chinese never invaded Japan. So I've only ever seen it kind of in South Korean movies and in sort of in Chinese movies where they kind of speak about the Japanese occupation. So no, I've never kind of really seen a flip side of that. They don't, like, Japanese are a little bit more inward looking generally, or a bit more of an insular society, so that the movies tend to be very focused on Japanese culture rather than looking outward. No, I don't think I have, actually. It's a great question, but I can't think of a single. The closest I can think of, there's instances of post-World War II, there was a lot of Koreans there, and that worked its way in quite a few, but not really in period pieces. I guess they were period in the sense that they were set in the late 1940s, early 1950s, but were probably actually made a little bit later than that. But they would certainly have kind of like gangs of Koreans going around causing problems and kind of running crime organizations. So you'd see that a little bit in Yakuza movies. But that's the closest that I can think of. And there's occasionally they show up in South Korean movies as, like, this is quite a recent thing, as the main villain, like the guest villain. They'll bring in somebody who's incredibly good at martial arts. And so that'll be the person that I'm thinking of, the Roundup series that Ma Dong-suk has to go up against. Like the very first of those movies, the Roundup, he's kind of going up against. In fact, is the first one? No, the first one's the Outlaws, right?
Yes,
going up against like a kind of a gang of like Chinese triads who are particularly nasty. So there's a little bit of that in South Korean cinema, but Japanese cinema not so much, and certainly not in the kind of period pieces.
Okay, because I asked, because this is fair-handed how it does paint them in a bad light in moments, but it gives a little more even keeled, that it's not just that caricature of, especially the Bruceploitation ones with the Hitler mustaches and just straight, like, really has that ebb and flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is more like Heroes of the East. There's kind of a mutual respect for the arts coming out of those countries, which I really, really like. Obviously, there's the dastardly component of the people working behind the scenes in this one, but I think it definitely honors the both sides of the playing field, as it were. So I think it's a very interesting film from what I've gathered, in the Tony Ching-Soo-Tung, who is the director, apparently he just had an idea for the film in his head, and it was very difficult to write because he kept coming up with ideas. And was it Manfred Wong? Sorry, is that his name?
Yeah.
Manfred Wong was very much struggling, which I find very, very funny indeed. That he kind of couldn't keep up with Tony Ching-Soo-Tung's
and
brain.
Also, I think it sounded very much like Tony Ching-Soo-Tung refused to basically say if he liked anything or exactly what he was thinking about. So he kind of viewed the whole thing as some sort of weird, bizarre chess game or poker match where he didn't want to reveal his hand. Exactly. So I think it was a very difficult process, trying to write the script. And a lot of it he ended up not using in the end too. Like, he cut out so much of the dialogue. And he was kind of clearly coming to it as he's a supremely visual filmmaker, but it's mental that this was his debut as a director. And he'd done a lot of work before this as a choreographer and as a stuntman, but this is his kind of first time having to kind of balance working with actors as well as choreographing all the action and having to kind of get acting performances. So I think it's kind of very telling that he was probably much more comfortable with the action than he was with the dialogue. So there's less stock placed on the dialogue scenes. There's no big, massive, long page after page expositions here. It's like the minimum amount of dialogue just to kind of move you along to the next point in the story, which totally works. It kind of keeps it flowing really, really quickly. But yeah, incredible.
Yeah, I think he edited it as well, which is crazy. That he had this vision in his head, and obviously he knew what he knew what he wanted to do. And if you watch Duel to the Death, and just kind of for those who haven't seen it, if you watch it and focus on the fights, it goes against what we all hate in modern cinema, which is 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Because Tony Ching Su Hung has 1,000 cuts, and for some bizarre reason, the fights look incredible. It works. But before we go into spoiler territory and start discussing kind of our relationships, let's go ahead and dive right into that. Let's discuss our relationship with the film. Jason, I'll probably have you go last because you have not seen this film before, if I'm correct.
Right. This is my first watch, or I watched it about. Really? Yeah, I watched it 2.5 times. I was watching the original language, and that was running out of time. But yeah, I had it forever. I had the Eureka sitting on my shelf in my watch pile because someone recommended about 2 years ago. But as we talk about, the watch pile can grow and things go to the front, So it was always my rainy day. Like, I got to watch that. People keep telling me, and this was a perfect opportunity. So it wasn't like I wasn't interested. I totally was excited. But I'll shut up now. We'll keep room.
Yeah. Well, this film blew me away without me even knowing what the film was. The first time I saw anything from this film was on the Best of Martial Arts documentary, which I know in the US is called something else. Is it called The Deadliest Art? The John Saxon documentary?
I believe so. I need to ask you guys about that. It's definitely more of a European. So many people bring this up a lot. And you guys said it was kind of like a rite of passage to watch that documentary.
I think so. I think a lot of people did.
But I want to ask, like, where... I probably have it on like multiple. Isn't it released on multiple releases as like an extra? Don't they throw it on? So I need to.
Vinegar Syndrome put it out on their release of Right and Wrongs.
Okay, I have that.
And Eureka put it on something that I can't remember what it is on.
I'm going to have to see that because I think
there's a Eureka version too.
I know some scenes in this really was showcased in that documentary.
Yeah. It really was. And it used the music as well, I think, if I recall, from the film to kind of punctuate the documentary. And I remember seeing clips from it. I don't even know. Yes, I do remember. It actually has the Casanova 1 kite ninja moment in it. Yeah. And that was in the documentary. I saw that, and what was I? Probably 13 years old. And it just captured my imagination. And thankfully, John Saxon does actually reveal the name of the film in the documentary. It's not just random clips. And I immediately went out and grabbed the Made in Hong Kong VHS of this film, which I kept for years. I had it up until not long ago. In fact, just to kind of laugh a little bit about the VHS, it really, really sold itself well, because on the front it's got like ninjas and sword play, and on the back it just has the naked woman from the film, which I really appreciated, because when I turned that VHS over, I went, whoa, this is my type of film. So I immediately picked that up, and
marketing worked on Shaun.
Exactly. Long story short, I fell in love from the moment I saw it, and it may be, I think, if I were to count the number of times I've seen Kung Fu films, this would be up there as one of the ones I've watched the most in my lifetime. I would say it's easily, this isn't a word, revisitable. You can just put it on, and like we said, you can put it on kind of not as background noise, but you can choose to just watch it as a fun ninja flick, or you can choose to really get involved with the plot and appreciate it for what it's doing. And I mean, I'll wrap my opinions up, but I love it. And you know what? I'm going to say it. This might be one of my favorite Kung Fu films. Or at least I'll say this. It's my favorite wuxia film of all time, I believe. Maybe not flat out Kung Fu, but wuxia film, I would say it's my favorite.
Well, it's so sword heavy. I can't even remember. Is there much hand-to-hand at all in this?
Very low. Very low.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually if there's a mix, I just call it a kung fu movie. But sometimes when it's so like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon into things,
This
which
is
I had a
pretty
lot
much
of
just
feeling
swords and tricks.
flying
Yeah.
around.
Yep. Yep. Dragon, what's your relationship to this movie?
Similar to you, but without. I saw the documentary after, so I got this first on VHS because at that point I was already locked in hard into the Made in Hong Kong VHS releases. So we were, because they were coming out pretty regularly. There was almost like one or two coming out every month or every 2 months or so for a while. For a couple of years, there was the kind of golden age of Made in Hong Kong on VHS. And so myself and my flatmate at the time were basically able to buy everything that came out from Made in Hong Kong. Like we would just split the releases between us. And I think he actually ended up buying this, but he was my flatmate, so he was in the house the whole time. And yeah, we watched that VHS to death. And then when it came out on DVD, which I think it was a Hong Kong Legends DVD release, I kind of moved over to that. So I think my flatmate moved out, taking with him his half of the Made in Hong Kong VHS collection, which hurt harder than losing the rent payment, because he had some great stuff. Because I'd been buying all the Jackie Chans, he'd been getting all the Sammo Hungs. I'd been getting most of the Shaw Brothers stuff, but he was getting a couple that I didn't pick up. So I had to kind of go back and re-find some of the Shaw's releases that he'd got.
Wow.
And Joe to the Death was one of the ones. So by the time that came around, it was already out on DVD. So I never got back the VHS tape. I just got it on DVD. And it was a pretty great disc, actually. It looked markedly better than the VHS did. And I think there was a bunch of pretty good extras on it from what I can remember. But yeah, absolutely adore this film. I think it's my favourite Hong Kong ninja movie, or my favourite Hong Kong movie that has ninjas in it. I know that an awful lot of people still rate Five Element Ninjas. I kind of, as Jason well knows, prefer the Venom's own take on that story. I prefer Ninja and the Deadly Trap over Five Element Ninjas, but I prefer Duel to the Death over both of those movies. I think it's a better movie all round, and I think it's still, weirdly, it's Ching Su Tong's best film as a director. So it's in some ways a bit sad that his he started so high that he was just never able to reach those peaks again. And also some of it's more that this was the subject matter that was the most up my street. I grew up desperately wanting to be a ninja until I realised that wasn't a viable job opportunity. I guess I was maybe about 13 or 14 when I realised, but it's about the time that I first started discovering girls and realised that girls probably wouldn't be that interested if I said that I wanted to be a dark, vengeful creature in the night committing assassinations. That probably wasn't the best way to kind of get a second date. So I had to leave or turn down the volume on my ninja obsession. But I was pretty heavily obsessed with ninjas for most of my childhood. And I can't really remember how it started. I think it was probably from seeing the TV adaptation of Shogun when it was on. There was a sort of tiny little ninja scene in that, and then starting to kind of find other little pieces, and then Shokasugi and all that other stuff. But yeah, no.
Speaking, can I just interject for a second? Speaking of Shokasugi, Kino Lorber just released, what was it, 3 of the ninja films, like Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, and I can't remember the first one.
Is it Enter the Ninja?
Enter the Ninja,
Enter the Ninja.
Ninja 3 Domination.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I have never seen those films, so I just purchased all 3.
Okay,
cool.
So I'm very excited to finally sit down and watch those for the first time and finally kind of understand the ninja craze decades after it happened, which I'm really excited about. So, sorry, I just wanted to bring that up that I did purchase, and I'm really excited.
Appropriate time. That first one, I think, for me, is still the best of those 3. Even though Shokasugi's less of a ninja in it, it's Django is the ninja in the first one. It's Franco Nero, and it's very strange because none of it makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense where it's taking part. It doesn't make sense that he has that skill set. It's a bonkers movie. But yeah, I think Shokasugi, for me, he never managed to make a sort of good definitive ninja movie when he was in his heyday. I kind of almost like him. This is not going to go down well, and I apologise to the many folks that I'll offend. I still think his best movie is Ninja Assassin, when they brought him back much older. And the sort of aging ninja master. That's a more authentically ninja movie than some of the stuff that he did in the past, which is always him.
It's an underrated movie.
Like, truckers in like kind of
Right.
trucker caps and with a shotgun in the back of a U-Haul pickup truck, and it was like
Yeah.
very strange seeing ninjas in that sort of situation. But yeah,
Oh, he's in
strange
America.
time.
They always bring him to America. That's the thing.
Yeah, yeah, sadly
Well,
so. So,
one thing to add on that though is that on the first one, the producer of Canon Films, he was just an extra, and they saw him and were so blown away that they moved him and they were let him show all his skills, brought him into the main role, and that's how he blew up. He was just like an extra, and they like completely, as you know, Canon Films on the fly just redid the whole script and everything. And I kind of see him half and half. I see it as a funny, like cheesy elements, but he does so many showcases in them, like where he really shows all his weapons and all this stuff that they let him like really run with it. That I think, like, I don't want to spoil for Shaun, but like Revenge of the Ninja, the end fight is just every ninja weapon and move and crazy thing you can ever think of. Yeah. But from the eye of the 80s funny factor. It's because that's the element. When I sat down for this, I was like, okay, cool. I'm entering more like I thought in my mind, I always say it wrong, Shinobi no Mono. Is that it? Shinobi. I thought it was kind of, okay, this is going to be dead serious. This is going to be like, but once I saw the kites, I was like, wait, are ninjas always slightly funny? I was like, is there always a little bit of a funny element to ninjas? I'm imagining that Shinobi no Mono doesn't have any of because that's so far long ago.
I mean, it depends on how deep you want to get into it. When it first started, like there was a series of children's books in like 1910, 1920 in Japan that kind of first introduced this concept of the ninja. And at that point, they were kind of like superheroes. They're almost like superhuman. They could they could transform into different things, and they could teleport.
Yeah.
And they're able to have basically magical powers. And so the very, very early movies, they were hugely overpowered. Like they kind of were almost much more like mythical creatures than they were like people who knew stealthy tricks. So the kind of first incarnation, or the first wave of the boom when it happened in Japan, was very much like that, basically, and very fantastical. And then in the 1960s, when Shinobi no Mono came around, it was much more grounded in reality, because the first guy the guy who made the first two movies was kind of low level, sort of socialist, communist leaning. And so he kind of viewed it in a way to kind of do this sort of quite political anti-establishment story through the lens of this ninja film. And they kind of unexpectedly were way more popular than I think they expected them to be. And it kickstarted this boom in Japan of them making a whole bunch of ninja movies. Most often not in black and white for most of the kind of first wave of them. And it's never really stopped. Japan's been making ninja movies ever since, and they've changed in tone a little bit. Like sometimes it does revert back to that super overpowered thing, and sometimes it gets a bit goofy. You get like ninjas versus aliens and ninja versus sharks. Yeah, and all that sort of stuff still going on.
That's my childhood wrapped up in one thing. I was always obsessed with sharks, and my gosh, I have to see that. yeah.
Isn't that Koichi Sakamoto, Ninja versus Shark?
I think it might well be. Yeah.
It's a fun ass film. It's ridiculous, but it's fun.
Well, that's why I have to temper, Shaun. When you get this, keep that mindset on, because it's really like mid 80s canon. You know what I mean? Because I agree with Dragon. It's kind of a shame someone didn't grab Shogosugi, because when I was 7, you did I think Dragon said this before. When you watch American Ninja when you're 8, you don't understand. Like, doesn't like hit you as, oh my god, this is acting. You kind of roll with the flow of it. But looking back, it's like you wish someone would have came and plucked Shogosugi and put him in something. I don't even know. Maybe if he could have been involved in one of these or something like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I would have loved Sakura Killers for me, but and Sakura Killers is such a fucking mystery because no one really knows who has the rights to it or who exactly made it. Like, I read a great interview with a guy who ended up being tasked with editing it, and he didn't even know who'd shot the original footage that he was being asked to edit, but he had to go away and shoot other stuff to try and make it make sense.
Sounds like a Godfrey Ho vibe.
Completely, 100%. And like, I think for me, Sakura Killers was the one. Like, Sakura Killers was markedly better because I think it was all filmed in Taiwan, or most of the action was filmed in Taiwan. And that had like the tunneling ninjas kind of going under the earth like Bugs Bunny, where you just see the little mound of soil moving. I loved all that sort of stuff, and then kind of launching from underneath the ground way up into the sky. And they would always wear like the kind of Halloween style devil masks.
Yeah,
with the little horns.
Oh yeah.
Which was so cool. They had like a variety of different coloured outfits, so it wouldn't always be black. So you'd have black versus red versus, and Godfrey Ho did a little bit of that stuff too. But
Oh
there's
yeah,
always
in the
been-
IFD films, there's tons of colourful ninjas in that. Yeah.
There's always been a little bit of silliness, and there is quite a bit of silliness in Duel to the Death, but it kind of all works for me. And I think it works for me because he never even remotely attempts to try and contextualize it or explain why it's happening. Like he never explains in the narrative of the film, oh, by the way, ninjas can form together like Voltron to form one giant super ninja.
Oh, that was the first moment. Yeah, that's when I was like, wait, okay.
You're like, what the fuck? I think that's just because he realized he could do a crazy perspective trick in camera, right? And then had to kind of work.
Which is
it out to
incredible,
make it
by the
work.
way.
Yeah.
In the film, it looks fantastic.
It looks unreal.
Really well made.
Perspective. Really good. Yeah, unbelievable.
And even the decapitated talking head, all the tricks that he does work really well.
Very, very good. Very good. I can't. I don't know. I can't compliment this film enough. I think there's so many elements of it that just work so well together. And like you said, even when they're a bit silly, they never like lean into the silliness. It just happens to be a bit daft, but then it just, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It just works within the context of the film, that it's not trying to be silly and goofy. Like, you watch the IFD films and you're like, well, come on, guys, this is a bit daft.
Oh yeah, this
silly,
is,
but
for me, this is light amounts of just silliness. It just, not silliness, just kind of like you chuckle, like the kites. And then the other one where they're moving the kidnapped Chinese fighters through the woods. It's also unapologetic in the fact they're just like, we're trucking in the air, like, because there's a weird element that Crouching Tiger really ran with and showed it to the masses in America and everywhere. It's just that it's like the Wuxia legend thing, and you don't even question it after you've seen a few, how they just jump and they fly and everything's, but the ninjas take it on, they're like on their own element, they're up in the air, and they remind me of ants. They all work in unison real quick and do something, and it's like, you don't see that as much like in the kung fu movies. I think it's only ninjas really that get in a pack, and if they have an operation, it's like they could build a wall in like 5 minutes or something. It's like one
they're just climb up on top of each other into a wall.
Completely.
It's like one mind for all of them, like run something.
Like a hive mind.
Yes. They're like the Borg of the kung fu world.
Well, we have to get into your opinions, Jason.
Yes, we do.
We have to. So, as a first-time watcher, how did you feel about Duel to the Death?
Well, I won't do a drum roll on this one. I'll just say absolutely phenomenal. I mean, seriously, I kind of feel bad that I had this on my shelf. It's like the power was sitting there, and I'm just like, what else do I have there? I like having that because it's like your own little blockbuster. You walk in, you're renting off yourself in a way. But guys, I mean, so blown away to the point where the way I felt with Human Lanterns, I still have that feeling. I feel like that attention to detail. And Dragon answered the question right out the gate, saying the amount of time it took. Did you say a year to shoot, or
6 months?
In a year for the screenplay.
Yeah.
Yeah, to write. Yeah.
And as you said, when you summed it up, it shows. I mean, this, and as much as I love the Bruceploitation, and it seemed they wrote it on a napkin 5 minutes before, like Enter the Game of Death, there's no plot. This just seeps really thought out, really well crafted. And even the moments where it's haphazard, like they seem intentional, but in a way where it's not like those moments where they're going through the creek and you could tell they want the water to like go towards the camera, and then it goes to like a really still shot. It's all thought out, and it all flows, and the editing it's so great. And it's not tons of exposition that you just go, oh, it's the acting that's great in telling the story. The pace, it's one of those ones where it's like an hour 20, but it feels long. And then once it's done, it feels compact, but it's not like sometimes an hour 20, you want a little more. It just like, well, that was it. This is like really
like it has room to breathe, right?
Room to breathe. Yeah. I loved perfect. I love the ninjas coming in, but it really, boy, it hits all the bases. And then listening to Frank Zhang's commentary filled in other gaps, because to me, it felt kind of like a Japanese film at times, a lot more than a Hong Kong film. And I guess it is such a hodgepodge, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a mixture of filming in Korea and filming in Hong Kong, back and forth, tons of that. And Korea does, to me, have more of a Japanese aesthetic to it than I'd say like the Taiwan and Hong Kong, at least to my eyes. Like it kind of, like when I see like, probably just the type of trees, that darker green and more of like a sterile look, kind of like clean, like Japan just looks super clean to me, even the forest area, it kind of, But yeah, so I love the actors. Where do I know Norman Chu from besides? I know he has.
Much.
Well, I know
You know,
like
from
Bastard
everything.
Swordman. Yeah, but what I've seen him, he has one role where he's like in a suit and he's like a partner. I don't know if it's a Bruce Lee movie or something. Does he have like there's one movie he's in a suit, I swear, and it's like
Yes,
I just can't
you're
think
right.
of I couldn't remember it through the whole thing.
Nope,
It's
but
either
you're absolutely right.
yeah. So I knew him from that, and of course Bastard Swordsman and a lot of these other ones that are amazing. But I love his screen presence. It's interesting. I don't know. I wonder if the Japanese get offended when someone else plays a Japanese person. Maybe not, but he does a great job doing that. He really comes off great and has the different mannerisms and the way he moves and everything. And then what's the main actor's name again? The Damien Lau.
Damien Lau.
He's great as well. I mean, God, such good chemistry and such a good job of. This is what I didn't expect. When I heard Duel to the Death, for some reason, I thought they were just going to be fighting the whole entire time, these two guys. I did not know it would have all these different elements. And there was something, I only watched season 1 of Cobra Kai, which I really liked. I really liked it. But my favorite, for some reason, when I started watching season 2, I've been wanting to get back to it. But in Cobra Kai, when Daniel and, Johnny Lawrence, they meet up in some bar in like Van Nuys in the Valley in California, and they're just sitting there talking about, like, it's just strange. They're even dueling in this, but the fact in this Cobra Kai that they're sitting at this bar and talking about Elizabeth Shue, I'm saying her actress name, but just it's so cool in that it breaks. I don't want to say it breaks the fourth wall. I just loved how the two of them can be feuding for. We're talking movies and everything in this whole season, and they're just shooting it. I got that vibe when the two of them arrived there, and they have such a respect, and they're just kind of like, yeah. And it's almost like, in another lifetime, I wouldn't have had to chop your head off, like the vibe of the two of them. And I think that's so neat. And you really don't see that in a lot of American action movies at all. I mean, it's always quarantined. Like the villains are off here, it's never, they run in half of the movie because the martial world allows for this thing, where there's, often, and the ninjas kind of break this, they're breaking this martial world like rules where it's like, oh, we're going to fight on this day and can we do this or that? It's just a lot of rules. And like I saw that a lot in the Lone Wolf series where he's like, oh, when they stole the child was breaking like this kind of martial rule, and I love that. And I just love how they just, by the middle of the movie, they're like hanging out like for like a lot of it. And they're going over how they're feeling about the duel. By the time you get to the duel, I looked at the time, I was like, oh crap, there's only like 8-9 minutes left. So I had the wrong idea going in, but my opinion is blown away, guys. This shoots up high. It is so good. This is Human Lanterns, Heroes of the East. I want to like shout it from the rooftops. Everyone needs to see this. The fighting's incredible. Agreed. The editing, the acting, the cinematography. A couple of those shots where Norman is, I think he's on that bridge. It'd be a simple shot, but they make it look great. And then in the water where he's standing there, blown away.
The sheer achievement of that last duel as well, like how logistically difficult that would have been to shoot. And the Blu-ray transfer lets you see the wires, which I don't mind at all for that last sequence, because there's nothing at all to hang those wires off. Like there's no crane that they could have supported it with. So they essentially had to tie the wires to other people. So like Norman Chu, because he gets interviewed on I think it's on the Eureka Blu-ray, there's an interview with him. And he kind of explains that like they were pretty precariously placed on really jagged rocks, trying to do this in unfamiliar shoes because he's wearing like very strange Japanese style shoes in it, which he said were really hard to kind of keep your balance at the best of times. But if he went over the edge, he would have pulled down 6 or 7 stunt guys with him too that had to be there to kind of try and work the wires. And there's a craziness to the way that Ching Su-tung kind of thinks about action in his mind. It's not really like anyone else, and I think. We'll maybe get onto speaking a little bit about some of the other stuff that he did later in his career, because I think after this point and after doing the Chinese Ghost Story movies, he never really managed to sort of direct anything of this sort of like quality and caliber again. But he would certainly work on other movies that were as good. But he would work on them just purely in the fight choreographer sense. So he was choreographer on Hero and on the House of Flying Daggers and something else.
House of Flying. That's my favorite of that they're all really up there, but that for some reason that one just hit the spot for me.
Oh yeah, because it's got very similar kind of like very otherworldly kind of elements to the action, and I think he's had one foot firmly kind of placed into the realm of fantasy. It's why he worked so well for the Chinese ghost story movies, because he could kind of he could treat that sort of stuff seriously without it ever seeming campy and seeming silly, as goofy as it sometimes is. But yeah, no, sorry, I don't want to step on what you were saying at the end there, Jason. But yeah, no, he's something else, and this movie was unreal.
Oh, I know.
Crazy to come out the gate with this.
Yeah, just my final wrap up on it. In going through the Ninja Craze thing, like we said earlier, and I have a similar trajectory as Dragon. When I was 6 or 7, I was getting those Ninja magazines. It was just the coolest thing ever. And Revenge of the Ninja, like my dad saw the nudity at the beginning and he was like, oh, you can't watch that now. But when I was older, he let me rent it again. So it always had that, oh, I got to get back to whatever. Like some girls in a hot tub and one of the bad guys, or the main, I think Silver Ninja blows a dart into her breast, like in the jacuzzi. And my dad was like, we got to turn this one off. I was like 6 or something, But getting back to that. So, when you add that to like a child, like it's like, oh, I can't, oh, it really ignites the fire. Yeah. And so going through all that, and that's what I was saying to Shaun. So when you go back, though, and watch those, it's like 50-50. It's great to see Shogasugi, but half of it's pretty cheeseball with a lot of that canon and American, of course.
Yeah.
And so getting more of this, but outside of the kites, which is really cool, it just kind of made, like I said, made me chuckle. This is a little more of a serious approach showing the ninjas. It shows them in this, like, I love just the uniformity of how they move. It reminds me of Ninja in the Dragon's Den. My favorite ninja movie, I've told you guys, but is Five Elements Ninjas. That just takes the cake for me, because coming up with the Venoms and all that, by the time I got to that, I was like, oh man, we get a Venoms. It's not technically a Venoms movie because it only has Lo Mang. It has baby Venoms in there with Ricky Chang. But just having those ninjas in that was just the perfect like melding pot. I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. Just seeing them all going up against ninjas blew my mind. So it's hard for me to ever topple that one, because it has not just the nostalgia. Something about Shaw Brothers and how Chang Che dealt with them. It wasn't silly. He gave them like some respect in it,
He somehow managed to even make shiny gold ninja suits somehow believable.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I know. It just, oh gosh, that one just takes the cake for me. And I think, I will say it's a little overstated sometimes. Like it's fallen into the Five Deadly Venoms, Enter the Dragon. It's always brought up, and that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of like, sometimes
you mean this is, or you mean Five Element Ninjas?
Five Elements Ninjas. I feel sometimes it's brought up so much that it doesn't discourage my feelings on it. It's just kind of like, when it's, when you hear a song 10 million times and then one day you get in a different mood and you get to hear it again, like it's just sometimes just the hype around it has been with the social media so much, but that's my favorite ninja movie overall. But this is like getting up there.
I was gonna say we'll have at some point we'll have to get you into some of the Japanese ninja movies, because that's a very different flavor as well.
Get me into that. Well. I'm not there either. Yeah.
Well, Dragon, do you rate Five Elements even though it's lower?
Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love it. I just don't love it as much. I wish that we could get a proper remastered version of Ninja and the Deadly Trap, because at the moment it doesn't feel like it's a fair fight comparing the two just now. Because when you watch Ninja and the Deadly Trap, the quality is so bad in all the available versions. Even the DVD is not great.
Yeah,
but the core kind of building blocks in that movie are, I think, better formed. Just by the fact of who's involved. Like it's the kind of the Venoms doing their own thing, and as Philip Kwok attempted to kind of try and direct. And I know that they spent so much time focusing on the choreography and the action that he had to bring in someone else to help direct. So that a lot of the second
unit,
but he wasn't doing what a second unit normally did, which is action. His second unit was doing all the dialogue scenes. He was doing all the stuff as actors, because like Philip Kwok just didn't have time for that stuff, because they were putting so much into the kind of fighting and that. And so the acrobatics and the choreography that they get to do there is just, I think, better for me than the stuff that we see in Five Element Ninjas. And they're so similar in terms of story, because they are kind of both working from the same sort of script. But I'd still put Joe to Death above both of them. I think it's a more coherent film. Kind of overall.
One more thing on Ninja and the Deadly Trap that was amazing is having T-Lung and Yusuke Kurata.
Yeah.
It's really stacked with the Venoms in the middle,
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Other locations, it's nice having it outside too. So much of Five Element Ninjas is in the backlot.
Oh yeah.
Right. It doesn't get mentioned enough either, Ninja and the Deadly Trap. Like people I guess maybe because there isn't a remastered version of it, people just kind of toss it to the side as one of those shitty quality kung fu movies that doesn't get the love it deserves. Personally, I love Ninja in the Final Duel
That's your
by
jam.
Robert
That's your
Tai. That's
cool.
Robert Tai's ninja film. Unfortunately, I don't know how much footage he filmed for that. It was something like 12 hours of footage or 8 hours of footage. We only got one version of Ninja in the Final Duel, and then you can find on VHS like various versions of it from the excess footage. It's all spliced together, so it doesn't really matter.
Also been cut into Shaolin versus Ninja, or is that a separate project?
That might be separate. I'm not sure. Ninja in the Final Duel was, I don't know if you remember Shaolin Dolomite that came out years ago. That's the film that was used for Shaolin Dolomite. But I love it because it's Robert Tai at his wackiest. The ninjas ride giant spiders in it, which I think is really, really funny. So I love that film because I love the zaniness. I love the silliness. But speaking of the action, I thought this was an interesting tidbit about Duel to the Death. And I was incredulous at this. This lost... in regards to fight choreography, this lost out in the Hong Kong Film Awards to Winners and Sinners of all films. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the action in Winners and Sinners. It's fantastic stuff. But this just seems like something else. Like Duel to the Death seems, in my opinion, just leagues ahead of that.
I think a lot of that comes down to how he's cut it. Because it's crazy. We can look at it now and see it as being like a much better example of fast cutting than Hollywood's been able to achieve. Like, it's something that when we see it in a Hollywood movie, we rail against it because they use it in Hollywood to mask over the fact that nobody knows what they're doing. Whereas in Duel to the Death, he's using it to reinforce the fact that they absolutely do know what they're doing. He's just presenting it to you in a slightly different way than you've seen before. And he kind of cuts a lot, but you never lose your place in the geography of the fight. And he's still able to kind of work in these little mini narratives into individual fight sequences. And it's always him thinking about how to elevate things, sometimes literally. Like someone won't just jump in there, they jump in the air, step on the flat top of their sword to bounce even higher, right? Yep. He's kind of literally kind of working out the ways to push it to that extra place, and that sort of thing has to be done through kind of multiple short little sections to kind of make it, to sell the idea, right? And so I think it kind of really works. But at the time when it came around, it was radically different to what anyone else was doing. Like Sammo definitely started experimenting with doing faster cutting to get away from what we think of as being like the Lau Garlong school of long static or very graceful moving camera, looking at someone doing 40, 50 moves in one continuous row, right? And he kind of demanded that sort of excellence of his performers to be able to keep up with doing those sorts of shots, right? And this is not that. Like, it's very... it can sometimes, I guess, feel a little bit fractured or fragmented by comparison, but it never feels lesser. I think it's just a very different style. So I think at the time it was probably viewed as being quite radical, where an awful lot of people have adopted it since. But I could see people not knowing what to do with it at the time.
I couldn't believe that. Like, I could believe this, but I was surprised when I had to think about it that this film came out in '83, right? It surprises me that 8 Diagram Pole Fighter was made after this. Yeah. Because this film feels so, I don't know, it just feels so epic or important to action in general, because it was doing things that we hadn't seen before. And quite frankly, we probably wouldn't go on to see stuff like this until the 90s, where the real quote unquote waifu kicked in. I mean, don't get me wrong, we saw it in the 80s as well, but I feel like Duel to Death is more like Fong Sai-yuk. Granted, that doesn't have much swordplay, but it's still got that crazy wire work in it. And it feels like a 90s film to me, Duel to the Death.
Completely.
And that just goes to speak how far ahead of its time it was. And I do think it's weird how it kind of all laid out for Ching Siu-tung, in that he didn't really best this to a degree. I mean, some people... Did he direct Chinese Ghost Story? Yeah, he did.
All three of them, actually.
I just picked them all up.
They're very much like Choi Hart projects, but I think he'd worked with Choi Hart before on a couple of other things. I think he'd done choreography on a couple of other... He got brought in for A Better Tomorrow 2, so I think that whole last section in A Better Tomorrow 2 is largely his doing. The kind of people think of John Woo as always being responsible solely for his action, but he generally always had choreographers there doing stuff.
Ching Su-tung did The Killer as well. He was the action choreographer on The Killer, on John Woo's The Killer. Yeah,
and there was something he did, Peking Upper Blues as well for Choi Hark too, and that's what director kind of working on. So and they basically wanted to have a project to do together, and so that project turned into Chinese Ghost Story, which is I think sort of speaks so much to Chin Su-tung's sensibilities in terms of the sort of stuff that he seems to be interested in. I mean, I think one of the things we didn't get a chance to mention before, but he was kind of born into this world. Like his dad was a director at Shaw Brothers, a pretty well established director at Shaw Brothers. And kind of directed Flying Guillotine Part 2, and The 14 Amazons was his dad's as well. And The 14 Amazons was massive, big, epic scale, hundreds and hundreds of extras, and ironically tells the same sort of story as 8 Diagram Pole Fighter, but just from a different point in the story. So it's kind of almost after the dust is settled. It's all the ladies who've been left alive. It's up to them to kind of basically avenge their fallen brothers and husbands and things. And 14 Amazons is not my favourite Shaw Brothers movie, but it's certainly pretty grand in scope. And that was one of the first jobs that Chin Su-tung had. When he was 17, he was doing like action choreography and action direction on 14 Amazons.
I can't even fathom that.
It's nuts at that age. And I think he was also a big part of Tong Gai's stunt team, because like they said that, I'm sure they cover this on, I think Manfred Wong mentions this in his interview, where he kind of explains that he was hired as a stuntman at Shaw's initially before he was doing choreography work. And because he was born northerly in China, it wasn't quite the furthest point of the north, but it was pretty far north from Hong Kong. He'd studied northern style martial arts when he was growing up, and that was Tong Gai's style. So between the two, between Lau Gar-lung and Tong Gai basically handled northern martial arts styles, Lau Gar-lung handled the south. And so any of the sort of kicking stuff that you see is much more of a northern thing. There's very few kicks in southern martial arts, so Hung Gar's not really a kicking-based form.
Yeah.
It's kind of much more of low stance to kind of keep your keep stability, and there's kind of very few kicks, and if there is kicks, they're always quite low kicks. That's kind of why the Venom Mob worked so well with guys who had a degree of training from either from the northern schools or from Taekwondo, right? And I think that when he was working out where they could place him at Shaw Brothers, he ends up basically becoming part of Tong Gai's squad. So he was kind of one of his sort of regular troupe that he would use on productions, because he was really good at acrobatics and really into acrobatics. So by the time that he gets around to doing his own stuff, he's really leaning into that more than he is the stuff that we're more familiar with from seeing the Lau Gar-lung's own movies, or even when Lau Gar-lung was choreographing for Chang Che, because he was still doing it through a lens of sort of southern martial arts, unless he was working with Tong Gai. And they would kind of basically, I think it's why it worked when they were, if you had basically a north v south in each individual case in the battles and the choreography in the Chang Che's movies, you were getting to see essentially kind of kicks versus hands a lot of the time. And so they would kind of like split up the responsibility and split up the duties that way. So he by the time that he came around to actually doing his own stuff, we say it was his first film, but he'd worked on so many productions before that point.
Right.
He's in Come Drink With Me as an actor, as a kid actor. He gets a dart in his eye. He's kind of like basically one of the kids who gets maimed, I think it's maybe by the monk towards the end. But yeah, so he kind of started his career just acting, and then morphed into stunts, and then morphed into choreography, and then did TV, a lot of TV.
And then eventually he got the crown he was seeking, because he got to choreograph a Steven Seagal film, which we all want to do. So I mean, come on, you don't get higher than that. That's it.
That's true. That's the peak.
You retire when that comes out.
The only way is down after that. So, yeah, I believe he choreographed Belly of the Beast.
Wow. Okay. Is that the one he did with DMX?
Yes.
It's funny for how bad.
No, wait.
Is it?
Wait, he did one with Ja Rule and one with DMX. One was Exit Wounds and one was Belly of the Beast. I don't know which is which.
I'm going to double check.
For how bad Van Damme had like a slow slide down where like you can still appreciate knockoff in these ones, and I like Double Team in that it's but then once it gets to like 2004, like In Hell and on or
he struggles.
Derailed, it gets rough. But I heard, like, I haven't seen a lot of them, but Seagal's are really rough in that, like the straight to video ones in that period. He takes the cake for the straight to DVD, like bad movies.
Belly of the Beast was not the DMX one, incidentally.
Oh, was that Ja Rule?
It must have. I don't even know if Ja Rule was in it. It's Byron Mann.
Oh, wow.
I'm not too sure if there was a rapper.
That was definitely a thing, though. The hip hop with
completely.
with Jet Li, he did like a bunch of them. That was a big.
Romeo Must Die. Yeah. Cradle to the Grave. That one was with DMX.
That did pretty well. I think that one did.
Cradle to the Grave wasn't too bad. Young Woo Ping choreographed it, and Scott Adkins popped up in it, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, I don't know. Just the idea that the person who directed and choreographed Duel to the Death went on to do a Seagal film was like somewhat depressing.
It was this kind of weird, almost like this weird detention that you had to go through it before being allowed to work in America. It was like, okay, you've either got to make a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie or you've got to make a Steven Seagal movie. Take your pick.
Or Tom Cruise movie for John Woo, right?
Well, that came later, right? His first out the gate was Hard Target.
Hard Target, yeah.
And they didn't even trust him enough. Despite he'd already made Hard Boiled and The Killer, arguably two of the greatest action movies in cinema history from any part of the globe. But they still didn't think, he's like, well, you're in America now, none of your Hong Kong shit. So they hired another director to basically sit in a director's chair beside him, with the instruction that if the second that the other director thought that John Woo was not doing what he should be doing, he was ordered to take over. And that director was Sam Raimi. So Sam Raimi loved John Woo movies and said that for him it was just like a paid vacation.
Okay, that was like
he was never going to step in.
That saved the day.
It just sat and learned what John Woo was doing and said it was like going to school and being paid for it.
Wow!
And so he never once intervened or never once said to John Woo, "This is what you should be doing." He was just watching and taking notes. Like, this is insane. Like, the fact that you're asking me to do this is ridiculous. But yeah, I'll take your money. I'll sit beside him.
Yeah, of course.
And watch what he's doing. And
watch the master at work.
Is that because he brought over the woo woo choo choo, right? Which was his bulletproof camera dolly, so he could fire guns straight at the camera lens, right? So crazy stuff.
That's
lots of fun.
That's sad, and that's what they did with Bruce Lee. It's not as well known, but on Enter the Dragon, the reason they had Jim Kelly and John Saxon, which they were great roles, but the reason it was a little more like a balanced, had scenes with them as well, is because they weren't sure that Bruce Lee, being an Asian actor, could carry it at the box office, which it's horrible. And it's sad because I think it would have smashed if he had lived, but the fact that he died also took it to the crazy stratosphere. The legend. It seems with The Crow, it's craziness that before it even was released, they both died. That's just so nuts to me.
Yeah, really, really terrible. But both films became cult classics, which is a good one, because The Crow really took off as well, and there's no arguing that that's a classic now.
Dragon, one thing you said, which made me start talking about Southern styles versus, Northern and everything. When you think about Gordon Liu, I was like, he's right. You never really see these roundhousey, you never see even a back kick. So that's kind of like maybe why the Venoms, they were more Taiwanese based, but bringing in Sun Chen, you could get those nice Taekwondo elements, those style kicks.
Almost everything that even the other Venom Mob guys, I mean, you don't see it from them that often. There was what we were talking about quite recently in Kid from the Golden Arm. You do actually see Kwok Choi busting out, like you can see the fact that he could kick.
So good.
It was pretty spectacular. And so they were all like Northern style trained, because they were all trained in like Peking opera style. And the Peking opera is very acrobatic and kind of has a lot of high kicks in it, as does like kind of traditional kind of wushu forms that you kind of see in kind of more in tournaments, because it's much more showy. It's much more like visually appealing for doing displays. And a lot of the time when you're seeing those demonstrations, they are doing a huge amount of like jumping, spinning kicks and all that sort of stuff. So I think the Venoms definitely kind of came from that kind of background, and it's kind of why they worked so well as a unit as well. They were kind of because that type of choreography always looks so flashy, looks so showy.
The different styles eventually became a focus in Kung Fu films, because in the late 70s, you get a lot of those Taiwan productions where John Liu will be put with Don Wong Tao, and it'll be like Wong Tao is the fists guy, and then John Liu is the kicks guy. And I know it's a Taiwanese film and it's a different perspective, but you get films like, I'm going to get this completely wrong. Is the film Northern Fists, Southern Kicks? Is that what it's called? Do you know that one? It's like a 1970s Taiwan film. But I think there were elements
the other
of
way
that.
around, wouldn't it? It'd be Northern Kicks.
There you go. That's why I said I wasn't sure. But I think it's a case of they kind of focused on that in the late 70s. Even Secret Rivals has a degree of it, especially Secret Rivals 2. That has that, I think Tino Wong comes in and he's more of the fist guy, with John Liu being the kicks, I think.
And Invincible Shaolin not as much has the Northern Shaolin versus South, but that's a little more like, broken, tighter. It's not as much of a,
Yeah. Yeah. I've always liked that. I've always liked when they kind of contrast and compare styles. It's always been like quite aesthetically pleasing to me when one fighter is amazing with his hands and brings all the crispy shapes, and then someone else is just like throwing mad kicks. I appreciate that. It's got everything in it.
Speaking of like aesthetics, comparing styles, watching this, knowing it's a Golden Harvest, I try to like kind of see, so how does this differ? Their sets have a different feeling, and this is 10 years on from when Bruce Lee was doing, again, in the dojo and everything. And I don't know if Golden Harvest branched out and grew their sets, but their indoor sets look very good in this. It didn't look lesser than to me. And they're really good at going outside. I mean, they do that a lot more than Shaw Brothers, at least in that heyday period of that late 70s, early 80s. Early Chang-Chi, like I've mentioned before, like heroic ones. There's a lot of ones that are outside a lot, a mix. But man, it's interesting. In this, it really has so many different feelings to it. Like it doesn't hit you over the head as like a Golden Harvest film per se, because it has all these different elements of like Japanese culture and the Korean vibe of them filming there. So it's hard to but what is the vibe you get when you compare like a Shaw Brothers of this period to Golden Harvest? What sticks out to you guys?
Golden Harvest to me just seems more, I guess the word is lavish, because there's more kind of outside shots, more exteriors, and then the interiors just seem like real buildings, like genuinely, that's what it feels like. They're shooting in actual buildings, whereas Shaw Brothers feels very much like sets. And that's the difference between a Golden Harvest at this point just seems larger than life and more extravagant, whereas Shaw Brothers were I know they were kind of wrapping up around this time, but it was still very studio based. And I can't remember who it is on one of the interviews on the disc on Eureka. I can't remember who it is says, but he actually says he was shocked that, Shaw Brothers was still doing inside shots, interior sets for exterior scenes. And yeah, he was surprised by that. And whereas Golden Harvest felt just, way bigger in scope, I think, in general.
I think it comes back to what we were saying at the beginning for how long they were willing to let him shoot for. Because that's mental. Like to kind of give a first-time director that length of time to let them go to other locations is like a huge investment of trust in somebody. Yeah. And that's something that Shaw's would never have done. Like, they wouldn't have allowed you to take that long or go to that sort of length. Or I think they would probably view that as overindulgent. And I'm convinced that a lot of the decisions that they had to keep filming indoors was because they didn't matter where the sun was at. They could keep working people all night and it would still be fine. You could still keep shooting daytime scenes at 3:00 in the morning. So the money train would never have to stop. They would just, if the clock was ticking through the day, then they were filming something in it. And so they basically just maximized. They were so efficient with their production cycle that they were kind of keeping multiple productions going all the time. And it was literally just an assembly line. It was literally a factory, right?
Yeah.
And
theirs was like 4 weeks, maybe. I'm trying to think the amount of time they'd film for, like a month.
It's about 30 days or so for most shows.
And everyone was underpaid.
Sadly.
Yeah, it was a tough gig, man, I think. And it gives their stuff a charm to it that I really love. Like I like the weird hyper stylized aesthetic of Inside.
Yeah.
But it feels so different when you encounter something like this. It feels so much, like you say, grander because you're like, all of a sudden you're out in the world and you're going to different places, and it's becoming a little bit more, can weirdly, even though it's dealing with more fantastical stuff, it can feel more realistic because you're
more grounded. Like I agree.
Even with giant Voltron forming ninjas and all the rest, it can sometimes like feels more realistic, feels more grounded in realism. Even Eddie Co's set like decapitated head, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that was impressive for the year. That was like I saw that comment. I was like, I didn't know how, and and that's about the year, by the way. You never see this in American films. It's strange that these have these discrepancies. Like some people think it's 82. You'd think that would be really well known with like photographs or something, like you'd think like it in the theater, like when it debuted, it'd be like, this is the date. It's just strange online. I kept seeing 82 and 83 as when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it must have got a small theatrical run in South Korea,
Yeah, I
maybe
think so.
before this, because it came out in October in South Korea, then came out early next year, I think, for the Hong Kong audience. And yeah, I agree. You would think that there was kind of more talk of it being out in 1982, but I guess it must have been a very short run, or must have just
I
not
think so.
got much
Well, with
notice.
what is the Korean connection? I wanted to ask real quick. Why is it filmed in Korea? Why did it have a Korean? Is there someone in the cast or director that?
No, I just think
Okay.
that Korea was a pretty common location for them to use, partly because it had an abundance of temples. I think it was,
Casanova Wong was in it. He's Korean.
yeah, that's true.
The silver hair. Yeah.
He was quite an easy. It's not that far away to get to, and it's I think gives them just basically kind of gave them a lot more scope for the type of locations that were difficult to get in Hong Kong, and it had a decent grounding of filmmakers there able to help. So the crews were kind of pretty efficient because like Korea did have its own film industry that didn't really come into its own until you kind of get into the early 2000s for them to really start making their mark. But they were certainly kind of doing stuff. But for much of like the 70s and the 80s, it was really a satellite for Hong Kong. And I think they're sometimes a bit through gritted teeth from the Korean perspective. Like I've heard quite a few interviews with Korean filmmakers from that era that really, particularly the stuntmen, viewed that they were always looked down on by the Hong Kong filmmakers. And I think Jackie Chan's even admitted to this as kind of feeling retrospectively quite bad about it. And the fact that they will always kind of be a bit assholish with the Korean stuntmen. As like you're kind of you're just Korean stuntmen, you're not very good, you know. You can't keep up with the Hong Kong squads. But I think they certainly they kind of made the place available for kind of productions coming across, but there was no definitive connection. But I do wonder if the release coming out earlier was maybe a contractual thing for being allowed to film over there. Taiwan had a couple of strange restrictions, but not in relation to like cinema screenings, because I think it was a lot of the same companies owned the theaters there. The Taiwanese one was that you couldn't spend any money that you made in Taiwan outside of Taiwan. So it had to be reinvested back into Taiwan. So that's why Chang Cheh ended up with his own separate studio in Taiwan. But kind of crazy. Mental time. And the fact that 1983 became this year of the ninja in Hong Kong, because they all came out in the same year. So we got Ninja in the Dragon's Den, we got Five Elements Ninjas, and we got Joes of the Death all in the same calendar year, which is mental. And then they kind of stopped. They picked it up, they examined it for a minute, and then they just moved on. So they never really kept on doing stuff with ninjas in Hong Kong really after this. Robert Ties was a little bit later. But I think it was maybe even still the same year. I think Shaolin versus Ninja was 83.
Oh yeah. Maybe Ninja in the Final Duel was a little bit later, maybe
That
86.
might well have been, yeah.
Yeah.
He had to work on that flying spider technology. It took a little while to get.
Exactly. Yeah, they didn't have CGI yet, and they had to craft. I think you should see these spiders.
Craft those paper mache spiders.
Yeah, I got
Exactly. Yeah.
How does this one fare? Now I know with the Eureka release, that's when it came into my like awareness seeing it, and that's why I grabbed it. And everyone's saying this one's great, and I know like in the UK and places where that I keep forgetting the name of the UK that documentary,
the best of martial arts,
right? But outside of that, I know this is more wuxia, so that looks cool. Shaun is showing us the ninja on a spider for everyone listening. Like what I was saying is I know this is way more wuxia based. Some people are saying great kung fu movies, it might not come to mind as much because it's so sword heavy, obviously. But has this been like, in the circles, I didn't hear of this one too much all the time, because there's you have those heavy hitters people bring up all the time. But is this beloved across the whole community, or is this more like a lesser known one?
This is one of if you know, you know.
Okay.
And if you don't know, you've just not come to it yet. I think the people who have seen it generally absolutely adore it.
Okay.
Agreed.
I think, but it's always kind of been one that was never sort of spoken about as much, even though it came from a big massive studio, and even though the versions that we saw back in the day weren't bad, like even the VHS copy looked pretty good.
Fine.
By comparison to kind of what we would see, the DVD looked better, and then the new Blu-ray release looks absolutely spectacular. But it was kind of one of these ones that was just, I think, because it didn't have any really super recognizable names. I mean, once you start getting into Shaw Brothers, then definitely you recognize Norman Chu, but Damien Lau not so much. He was kind of more of a TV actor prior to doing this, and I think everyone, particularly in the first wave of stuff that was getting everyone excited about Hong Kong cinema, it was the big names. It was Jackie Chan, it was Bruce Lee, it was Sammo Hung. So I think people were obsessing over their content, and the other stuff not so much.
Okay.
Where the hell did Flora Chung go after this? She's great in this film.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
She's really good in this film, and then she just
looked incredible.
She was
when that interview with her was done, but she looked incredible in that interview still.
I couldn't agree more. She looked fantastic, and I think she was a dancer or like a beauty pageant girl, and then someone just picked her up and put her in the film, and she's great.
Her spoken English so good as well, because she studied ballet in the
excellent.
UK. So her speaking voice is actually, she almost sounds like she could be British. The way that she speaks.
And they do that thing where they just dress her as a sword fighter, and then everyone thinks it's a guy, but I had no idea it was trying to be a guy. They always do that.
They always do.
In Sword Stain with Royal Blood with the Chang Che movie, they're always referring to that girl as like a guy, and it's like, oh my gosh, even that girl looked extremely feminine. There's not even like any.
Yeah, it gets. I mean, it's super confusing on so many levels. I think that was done because a lot of the time it was really dangerous for women to travel on their own. So at that time period, it was safer for them to pretend to be men. But there's also a second level of confusion in the fact that there is no differential between he and she. There's a slight pronunciation difference, but it's essentially the same word for he and for she in Chinese. So in Mandarin, it's exactly the same. You just hit the pronunciation a little bit differently.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to say which one is which. I know the word is ta, but it's how you hit that word that will kind of like determine whether or not it's he or she. That's why subtitles fuck it up all the time.
I imagine,
subtitles a lot of the time it'll say she when it should be he or vice versa. Because it just depends on who's doing the translation. And if they're not paying attention to what's actually going on screen, or if people are using AI to do the subtitles, then that's quite often one of the things that falls foul of it.
I can only imagine that AI fucks it up.
I had a plot question. Now, this was the only part that I had to like rewind 3 times because it's so subtle. So when that Japanese fighter, who's interesting, he's always tagging right behind them with the ninja, kind of leading the ninjas for the plot. And when he reveals it to Norman Shu's character at that bonfire, and it's so quick what he says that I was like, wait, this is such a pivotal move. This is the plot of the entire movie. This is the turning point, the twist. But he says it in like a line. I had to rewind. I was like, I'm trying to follow, and I still don't quite get it. Maybe you guys can help me. Like the plot was they're going to abduct all these big fighters, and then they're going to sabotage the duel in a way to have the Japanese win, I guess was the now. But what was the thing he said about there was going to be like was it that they were going to take Damien away and then have Norman fight the female fighter, and then they were going to have her? There was something he said where there was something with the daughter, which there was that fight that happened with Damien and her, but that was just a different roundabout how it got there. What I'm trying to say is, how did the female play involved? Did you catch that line? I couldn't figure out. They were basically saying we're going to steal Damien and then put her in the place, and then she's going to lose on purpose. Was that pretty much it?
I don't think she was necessarily going to lose on purpose. I think it was just more the assumption that she would be it'd be an easier
that
match.
she would lose.
Oh, okay, I got it. Okay,
because there's no way that she could compete with him, whereas like, Damien Lau could actually give him a run from his money. And,
right.
And so I think, and the movie ends up not really coming down on either side. Like no one really definitively wins. They just kind of get to the end.
That last shot. I mean, it was saying that I think Norman took the bigger hit. He was dying, and the guy was going to walk away with no arm. Was the assumption?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. But
in my opinion, they both die at the end.
Yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
That's what I think. I read it as they both die at the end.
It's funny the amount of violence in these. Like it's just you would assume they die, but with these like, oh, he lost his arm, was stabbed through 3 times. Maybe that's the guy.
Well,
that's
it's a kung fu film, so,
right?
No, you're absolutely right. But I think it ties into the title of the film as well, Duel to the Death. I feel like they both die at the end because he's got the sword in his foot, kind of holding him up. And then the other one's taken such severe injuries. That's my opinion, but I know it's obviously entirely subjective.
How cool was that scene where this is where he trained in his masters, and when they take them underneath they're all in those nets. It kind of it reminded me of the movie Get Out, whenever there's this like psychedelic scene where he's taken it's like it's like this void, and it's just interesting that it's like, I don't know, it's like 100 yards below this, I don't know how that could be down there, this endless basement, and they're all kind of, you know how like certain animals, when you put them in a position, they kind of just go docile.
They just hang there.
All the fighters were kind of like in this state, and then he was trapped. it was so neat. It was so interesting how they did that. And I'm kind of surprised that this guy, as you said, this was like his peak, you know? This is like
Kinda as a director. I mean, he would certainly do other choreography that would rival this, and I think because of the cinematographer that he worked with on Hero, and Christopher Doyle's a madman, but he's also an absolute he's a master craftsman at what he's doing, and so the cinematographer on Hero, the way that film is shot and the way that they color coded it looks more spectacular, and the choreography that he's doing in it is more like leans harder into the wuxia world than this one even. So it's a lot more kind of weightless, but it's so kind of set around the idea of distinct colors that it kind of gives it this incredible unreal look, and all the fights that you're seeing are being recounted, so that you're sort of seeing an interpretation of somebody telling a story of how that fight went. So it's got this other sort of otherworldly feel to it anyway because of that. And then when you cut back to the guy who's telling the story, which is Jet Li, those scenes are almost could almost be black and white. The color palette's dialed so far down. So when the fights do come around, they're like an assault on the senses.
It'd be a good one to do. It'd be a good one to cover for the podcast.
We'll definitely get there at some point. Heroes,
that'd
incredible.
Be a fun one.
Heroes, I think, is maybe his highest point of his choreography, because like all the pieces were there, and he didn't have to worry about doing the dialogue. And Zhang Yimou is all about doing dialogue, and so he's kind of was able to handle the more acting bits of the movie at a level that maybe Chen Su-tung would struggle to deliver. And so it just becomes this incredible marriage between different collaborators coming together. So kind of Hero's sumptuous in a way that it's just unreal. But in terms of the movies that he actually directed himself, I don't think he ever managed to get quite back up as high as this, for me anyway. I mean, other people might disagree. Some people might love the Chinese Ghost Story movies more. There'll be people who love some of his later movies, because he did kind of go on to do more stuff. He did another movie with Jet Li after Hero, and he did another movie with Donnie Yen after Hero as well.
Empress and the Warriors.
Yeah. And The Sorcerer and the White Snake with Jet Li.
Yes.
And then more recently did Jade Dynasty, which I've not seen, in 2019.
I don't
actually know if that ever got a release in the UK or in the US. But I think it did quite well in China, but I don't think it ever came across. He did the sort of unofficial sequel to Naked Killer. He did Naked Weapon with Maggie Q. Which is not great, but it's actually probably on a level with Naked Killer. The kind of movie was always what it was. So I think
he choreographed Shaolin Soccer, I think, as well.
Yes, he did. He worked with Stephen Chow for a long time. He did Royal Tramp 1 and 2.
Yeah,
he did the Mad Monk. He did, So I think he's bounced back and forth, and I think I found he did this quite long interview. He was on the jury at the 2018 Asian Film Awards, and so I think they had him on as the panelist, and they kind of interviewed him quite extensively. And one of the questions that they asked him was whether he preferred being a choreographer or whether he preferred being a director. And he said that he preferred directing, but it was infinitely harder. It was much more stressful, and it was much more difficult, and I think harder to get those pieces to align. So I think it's probably easier for him to get work as a choreographer than it was to try and get his own projects off the ground.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually, that it would be easier just to find work in the action department.
Especially in the mainland,
that's kind of...
He probably carried more weight. If the Hong Kong film industry had kept on going, I think it might have been easier for him to keep on directing there. But he had to kind of almost start from scratch again when he went over to start trying to work in the mainland. So he did all the choreography for the opening ceremony of the 2008 Beijing Olympics, which I guess was a fairly big contract. And
he's done a lot.
He's been a pretty busy dude, and still alive, still with us. But I think a lot of people are retired now.
I thought it was interesting that there's this little tidbit of information on his Wikipedia page, and I'm fascinated to know who this magazine interviewed. Do you know Time Out magazine? Back in, I think it's 2014 or 2004 or something, they interviewed a whole bunch of directors and actors about their favorite films. Duel to the Death was number 92 in the top 100 films.
Man.
Who did they ask? I want to know what directors and actors they spoke to. Because I'm like, how many people are actually mentioning Duel to the Death? It just seems wild to me. Unless I don't know. No, very interesting.
Watching it, I had a lot of the Wuxia movies have these like tropes and similarities, but I had a lot of feelings of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. I could tell that they used a lot of just the aesthetic, the way when they would fly, the little bit of a romance going on, I mean, and it just, and I loved when I saw Crouching Tiger in the theater, that really just was like, oh, it felt so great. Like America was getting this type of movie. Hero for me, when it comes to the ones I was seeing in the theater back then, when it was such a kind of like a little mini craze going on, I thought Hero was a little lesser than Crouching Tiger and House of Flying Daggers for me personally. But I do see the aesthetics of Hero is just unbelievable. It's like a fever dream, like you said, like the whole time. It's just like, can you get those reds any more red than that? It's like the contrast.
Yeah.
But it's it's neat to see a movie this many years earlier, whatever it is of Crouching Tiger, just it's holding its own on that. And it makes me wonder if maybe that director, when he went on to other projects, didn't have that year for screenplay and 6 months. Maybe they got him back on a tighter schedule that could have cramped his style.
I don't think he had that length of time on any other projects I'm aware of. I think Chinese Ghost Story was pretty ambitious too. And they were doing an awful lot of stuff. Like Choi Hark's always been obsessed with the idea of trying to push the Hong Kong film industry further forward in terms of its visual effects and special effects.
Yeah.
So, and I think he regularly went over to Hollywood and tried to learn everything he possibly could. And
Interesting.
Years before computers came around, he was trying to learn practical effects, and his kind of workshop for these ideas was Zoo Warriors and the Magic Mountain. And he kind of like tried to do an awful lot of these things for the first time as a director and found that extremely difficult, but they still managed to do an awful lot. And I think they did quite a bit of stop motion for Chinese Ghost Story in places, so they had to get a guy to learn how to do stop motion for that. And so,
how are those? I've never seen those ones. I was thinking of picking them up, but
the first one's definitely the best one, and I think it's
I've only seen the first one.
It's an interesting story. 2 and 3 are not as good, and Leslie Cheung's kind of the main focus for the first 2, and then Tony Leung takes over for the third movie.
Okay.
I prefer, like, Choi Hart made an animated version, like just a regular hand-drawn animated version. I think for the subject matter, that's the one that works the best for me. So I kind of see it when I think of it in my mind, it comes up as a cartoon because it's the cartoon version that I
had that on DVD and I got rid of it without ever watching it.
Oh, dude, that's great.
Yeah, I feel so bad.
Just when you sold your DVDs or something,
Exactly. I had a backlog of DVDs that I just never got to, and it was just time to get rid of my DVDs. So that was one of them. I actually got it from, if I remember correctly, I got it from Rick Myers. Back in the day, Rick Myers was actually basically getting rid of a bunch of titles in his collection, and he was asking people to just email him if they want any of them for free. Yep. And I emailed him, and he sent me a massive box of
wow.
DVDs.
I didn't catch, man, I'm jealous. I didn't catch the free part. I think maybe there was a point where he was selling them initially, right? Like
maybe, yes.
Yeah.
I think I got mine entirely for free.
Oh, wow. Because I was buying stuff off of them, too. I got reprints of Shaw Brothers posters. But,
nice.
Yeah, I got like Mic'd Avengers, the original posters, but not the original. And I just haven't. It's one of those things that are in such an odd shape. I don't know if you've seen those posters. I'm sure that I have to get a frame for it. I just haven't got them yet. I have them. I actually want to get rid of some of them. I have all those posters that come with shout sets and stuff. And even if I like the art, for some reason, I don't know what I'm just not as into framing those ones. It has to really stick out to get on my wall. I mean, I have like Conan the Barbarian. It has to be like mind-blowing stuff, to go up there.
I like these tie posters. That's
those are great. Those are really good. And I'm proud of you on the Enter the Clones of Bruce back there. It's looking good.
Of course.
For the listeners, we're checking out. Shaun has a lot of frame stuff there.
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys. So I always kind of like to ask about favorite fight scenes. Just I really like the one where I don't know the actor's name, but that guy who was in the background the whole time, the shady guy orchestrating with the ninjas.
The fake priest, Eddie Cole.
Yes.
Eddie Cole.
That showdown in the woods, Oh, I love that fight when his head,
Yeah.
of course, like we said, got chopped off. That's probably my favorite fight. The end one's tough to beat. I imagine one of you might pick the end as the.
I'm right there with you. I really like the kind of forest ninja fight with him.
The
too.
forest, great. That thing he does with the tree bark when he pushes it up to block the
man.
ninja stars coming in, unbelievable. I was just like, how did he come up with that in 1982?
It's so seamless that's why maybe I'm not feeling this is like so chopped up, because they do it so seamless that you're not thinking, the cuts, it flows, and they do things. A lot of those we mentioned earlier, that sword hop where you can be floating as long as you stick your sword under your legs, you get another like it's like a video game jump. You get to go
it's
again.
Like double jump,
yeah. God.
I feel like Ching Su Tung said to Patrick Tam, "Hold my beer," because Jason, he was on a film called The Sword, Ching Su Tung. It's like an art house wuxia film directed by Patrick Tam, and it's a very popular film, and it got a lot of kind of credit when it dropped, and it feels like a very serious version of this, just a little bit more restrained. There is crazy like wire fu in it, but it feels more restrained, and it feels like Ching Su Tung got out of that film and just went, I need to fucking flex my muscles and do something special here, and just went crazy for Duel to the Death.
Your favorite, the finale with the rocks and everything, though, Shaun? Would that be your favorite fight scene?
I think I'm with you guys. I think I prefer the forest battle with the ninjas, just because I love the fantastical elements. I love the leaves falling. I love how they disappear and appear and drop down from trees to like hit you. I love that stuff. The final one's the most epic one, and I think it is one of the best. It's one of the greatest shot and greatest captured final fights of all time. And don't get me wrong, the choreography is beautiful as well, but that forest thing, I don't know. Even when is it? I can't remember if it's Norman Chu or Damien Lau when he stands on the ninja shoulders and runs over them.
Yeah, amazing.
I love that stuff. I love that stuff.
I'm sure that's Norman Chu.
Norman Chu, yeah. And I just love the fantastical elements, but if they're done right, and in this film they are done very, very, very right. I also love the violence as well. I love how violent this film is. Because you don't get that. Chang Che was, he loved his violence, but this just seems like one step up. It seems very gory, which I like.
And that honor where he has to stab himself, that's such, I think I've seen that before. He's like, hang on 1 second, now we're even. He's just stabbing himself in that. And they're and with all those, and that's the same locale of a lot of those Bruceploitation ones, like Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger. Like they fight on those same rocks with all the water. And I love, this guy really uses water and elements that I like that. It's almost like a throwback to early Chang Che, because Chang Che got rid of his shaky cam. He always would have like a one shaky cam shot in those early ones, because everything be very static, and then it'd be going up the T lung, and it's like some drunk guys coming up, and sometimes it'd be like slightly out of focus too, like sometimes it's weird. And this was like a nice mix of just beautifully framed shots, and then the next one will just be like another almost like camera guy in the water splashing it around, and it's like immersive, because like you set the tone and then you're down in the fight with them. It was pretty neat. And I also like how both of them would keep showing up in the same thing, and they're almost fighting for the same cause, that by the end he was like, why like fight at all? It's like there's been so much bloodshed, and that was a weird feeling when Norman still just stuck to his mission with the Shogun and everything, where he killed his like monk master. And one more question. So whenever, I love that scene, by the way, where his master put on that like Chinese whatever
sort of devil mask.
That was incredible. But that wasn't the Shogun though, right?
No,
that was
that's just literally his sword.
Okay, I thought
master,
who you saw a little earlier, but you also saw the Shogun too. You saw both of them in a scene, correct? I thought maybe the Shogun was so like, wait, hold on, we have to make sure this guy's good enough that he went down and the Shogun was dead. That's why I was confused why he was still so like, okay. All right.
And I think it was kind of really, they lean hard into the fact like the Japanese are all about loyalty and kind of loyalty and honor. So he was kind of duty bound, even though he didn't really want to. He's still kind of, his sense of loyalty and his sense of duty were the things that basically kind of pushed him through into this fight that he didn't want to have. Because really by that point, I think they're kind of like, they could be friends, they were like, they're sort of two sides of the same coin, really.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's what makes it all the more tragic. It's kind
Right.
of ultimately that it's a very different. We're so used to kind of Chang-Chi's celebration of like kind of heroic blood,
The martyr.
heroic bloodshed, but heroic brotherhood, if you like, of Chang-Chi's movies, where it was kind of all about this celebration of camaraderie and against a sort of unified against a singular foe that was generally always really bad. In the case of Chang-Chi's movies, like Wang Lung-Wei was always pretty despicable. Whoever else they were going up against, or Chen Kuan-tai and Crippled Avengers, right? That was kind of always like, it was always kind of a heroic pursuit to kind of go after that sort of bad guy. And this is something very different. Because by the time that you kind of get into that last fight, it's like you almost don't want it to happen, right? I wonder if that's partly why none of us have picked that last fight as our favorite, as spectacular as it is.
Yeah, it's like gas and the brake on at the same time. It's like, you know what I mean?
It's sort of a fight that you don't really want to see. You don't really want the guys to kill each other,
Right.
Because by that point, I think I would find it hard to say. I mean, really pushed to it, I'd probably pick Norman Chu slightly more, just because I'm more familiar with him from more movies and a big fan of him and a lot of the stuff that he's done through his career, and maybe more so than Damien Lau. But it's not like I'm rooting for one guy more than the other.
Yeah.
So it's a weird kind of fight to go in and watch, because you're kind of like, when they're hurting each other, you're kind of like, oh.
I had no idea what the heck was going to happen. I could not. This movie is not predictable. It really.
No. I was just going to say, Damien Lau has that look of a leading man. He really pulls off that look well. But yeah, looking at his films, he hasn't been in a lot of films that really promote him as the leading man.
No, he did a lot of TV, I think.
Yeah, I definitely did a lot of TV. I've seen a few of his TV series, but I think it's just he's got it. I don't know. I actually like him. Did he go on to be a director? Damien Lau.
That I
think
don't
he
know,
did.
actually.
Didn't he direct that Swordmaster 3D? I'm looking now.
He reminds me of
only
Lee
one
Min a
director
little
credit
bit.
for The Brave and the Coward in 1986.
Oh, who am I thinking of that directed?
Did he remind you guys of Lee Min? From like Heaven and Hell and certain movies. He reminded me. Lee Min didn't have a big role in Heaven and Hell because it has the Venoms and everyone in it. But he's an actor. He just kind of reminded me his vibe.
I love Lee Min. I love him. He's one of my favorites.
Oh, he's
He definitely
great.
has a presence that reminds me of a couple of people. He's like,
I guess he wasn't a fighter either.
no,
He had to learn for like kind of.
Yeah. Oh, Derek Yee directed Swordmaster, not Damien Lau. Derek Yee, sorry.
it's okay. Easy mistake to make. He's another actor turned director.
Begins with a D. I was close enough. Yeah, good stuff. Have we all got our opinions on Duel to the Death out? Do we want to wrap this baby up?
For sure. Yeah, that's my bottom line, is blown away. You guys are just, I mean, this isn't like an intervention type. It's just one that I've had and I've wanted to watch, but it's nice. And there's other ones I know down, but I like when I had Human Lanterns, but just to know what might be on my shelf, I can't believe.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh God, it was so good. It was so good. And I just have to state one more time, it's such a mixture of styles. It has such a nice blend. It feels like Japanese, Korean, Shaw Brothers, Golden Harvest, Wuxia, with a little. Now, there's probably not really any kung fu, right? I don't think there's even one moment where they even drop the sword. It's a straight.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in there's other ones they'll hold the sword and get some punch. This is nothing. You don't even get a punch.
No. I think I think it kind of took its inspiration a little bit. I'm not saying it did, but Adam Cheng, for example, he in his actually swordplay films, he rarely actually used kung fu. It was always sword or fan, always. Like it was nothing else. So I think there was this movie logic or movie rule that sometimes when you make wuxia films, it just has to be all about the sword, rather than anything else. And I think that's why this film, or partly why this film works so well, that it's not traditional. It's not what you've seen a million times. It's not, it's not Lau Garlung's style. Which, by the way, I have to say, very sad news about Lau Garlung's ashes being stolen.
Oh man,
really horrific. It's really, really
fucking,
dirty, man.
Fucking depressing.
For those that didn't hear, his wife was the one that kind of came out and spoke about this happening, because I think it was a blackmail attempt. Like there was never an idea that they were going to try and sell the ashes in the black market. They'd literally just been taken, and it wasn't just him. They took a bunch of famous people's ashes with the idea of trying to basically kind of blackmail the families into buying them back. But they caught one guy very quickly. Like the cops caught one guy involved. Okay. So I'm hoping that they'll extend to more. But I think the police statement at the time that they caught him was that they were very, they didn't expect that they were going to be able to get them back.
Shit, that's so fucking sad.
Which is horrible.
Yeah, it's a really shitty thing to do. I mean,
stealing
anything from anyone's pretty shitty, but kind of grave robbing, basically, is something that you don't expect to still be kind of going on. But yeah, and what a sad end, really, to somebody who'd had such an incredible career in life, and it's kind of...
When they got some of them back, they didn't get Lau Kar-Long's back yet, right?
I don't know. I'm not too sure
hopefully
anyone's back yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, you meant they caught the guy. Okay.
They caught the guy, but I don't think he still had the stuff that they stole.
I hope they get them all back. That's horrible.
Yeah, man.
It really is. I mean, Lau Kar-Long was, I think we're safe to say this, Lau Kar-Long was kind of disrespected in life in terms of like Shaw Brothers and how much he was owed and how much money he should have got. And now, of course, he's disrespected in death, which is just fucking ugly. It's lower than low. You don't get much worse than that. So that's a good note to end on, wasn't it? It's a nice perky note. Oh, yeah, ending a podcast on grave robbing. That's exactly what we want. Well, to all those listening, if you have watched Duel to the Death, please let us know what you think of it in the comments of your favorite podcast platform. Please do. And if you haven't seen it, how about going out and taking a look, because it's well worth watching. And there is 88 films Blu-ray on the horizon.
If you're for those based in the States who've not been able to get it because it was previously only available from Eureka, which is obviously a Region B release. It was a UK release. 88 films are bringing it to the States.
And are we safe to say that maybe the 88 films version might be a bit better?
I think it'll be a similar transfer, but there'll be all new extras.
Will there be better subs, or are they keeping the same subs? Do we not know?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I suspect, because I know that Frank's involved, so there's a good chance that there might well be. If he hadn't worked on the subs before, he might have given them an overhaul. It's the sort of thing that he wouldn't let get by him. So I haven't heard definitively if it has new subs, but I think
these subs have some issues. Shaun, you caught?
I don't think they have issues, but I think one of the common trends, especially in martial arts cinema community, that a lot of people tend to look at older releases and be like, well, the subs weren't perfect on this, and then someone else comes along and redoes them and they're like a million times better. That seems to be a trend that's happening. So yeah, I just wondered whether that was the case with this one.
I'll say real quick, I didn't get to that transfer is beautiful on this. Nice amount of grain. Yeah. Oh, it looks so good.
Yeah, it looks stunning. And dare I say, the dub track on this film is actually not bad. It really isn't terrible.
I enjoyed it.
Bit questionable in places, but it's a solid dub, I think, if you like dubs. But yeah, if you haven't watched this film, go out. There's plenty of options to see it. It's well worth watching. It's up there as kind of one of the best swordplay films out there. Absolutely. So we will go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for listening. We very much appreciate you. Again, if you want to leave a comment, please do. And if you like us and you have the ability to rate us or rank us on your preferred that's hard to say, preferred podcast platform, 3 Ps. If you have a chance to rate us, then we would love a 5-star review. That would be wonderful. But for now, it's goodbye from me, Food for Thought. Goodbye from Jason, Martial Arts Theatre 3000.
Later.
And goodbye from the Fanatical Dragon.
Thanks again. Come back next month for a spectacular Christmas episode.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone.